Hi everybody, this is Liam Martin back with another video at Running Remote, and in today's video we are going to be talking about how to be a remote worker in Mexico. We're going to teach you everything that you need to do to figure out where you're going to live, figure out what you're going to do, and figure out how you can succeed as a remote worker in Mexico. So stay tuned. So Mexico, definitely a country of differences. So you've got some areas where it's really unsafe, and you've got other areas like the ones that we're going to talk about that are completely fine and really cool to work in for extended amounts of time. I personally spent approximately 2.5 months in Mexico throughout the winter. I'm Canadian. Winters are really bad in Canada, so we get the heck out of there throughout the winter. And I'm going to be talking about everything that basically we did throughout our trip in Mexico. And I am going to pull in a little bit of information from other people that I know, that I trust, so that you have everything that you possibly need to have to be a remote worker or a digital nomad in Mexico. So number one, there are 4 major cities that I think that you should consider when looking at where to set up in Mexico. So that is Mexico City. The second one is Playa del Carmen. Third one is Tulum, and the fourth one is Cozumel. Oh, and Cancun. So there's 5. So Mexico City, Playa del Carmen, Cancun, Tulum, and Cozumel. Now, I have not personally been to Mexico City, but there are plenty of people that say that Mexico City is a fantastic spot to be able to work out of for extended amounts of time. I personally have not worked out of there. However, there are a lot of people that say that it's great. So if you are interested in going to Mexico City, I'm not going to talk about it that much, but I didn't want to bias you in saying, hey, that sucks. I just have not had that personal experience. Out of the other cities, the places that I would personally stay in this order would be number 1, Playa del Carmen, number 2, Cancun, number 3, Tulum, and then Cozumel would come in last place. Now, if you actually look at a map of Mexico and the coast, which is where all of those cities are located, you have Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, and Cozumel is right across from Playa del Carmen. It is an island. Cancun is really a resort city. Tulum is a really cool place, but unfortunately, I don't think it's quite ready yet for long-term remote workers. Cozumel is also a really cool place. If you want to do diving, it's probably one of the best places on planet Earth to do diving, but it doesn't have the right internet. So Cancun has got fantastic internet. The downtown area is actually really cool, relatively cheap, but it's very much for tourists, whereas Playa del Carmen is kind of less for tourists. It's got a much more homey feel. It's about 250,000 people, and in comparison to Tulum, which is very cool, but doesn't have internet, Playa del Carmen is pretty cool and it has fantastic internet. So we spent most of our time down in Playa del Carmen, and for anybody that is a remote worker, that's the suggestion that I would make as the place to set up as your base camp. Now, as I'm recording this video in 2019, quite possibly Tulum has gotten high-speed internet, in which case it's going to be a fantastic destination, I believe, for long-term remote work, but up until this point it really hasn't got that infrastructure yet. We literally spent 2 or 3 days down there, and we just had to get out of there because we couldn't get any work done. Now, internet access, you're generally only going to get it in Cancun, and you're going to get it in Playa del Carmen to the levels to which you would need it, and what I'm talking about is more than 5 megabits up and down. So the 2 spots that we were working out of in Cancun and Playa del Carmen were both Salinas, and Salinas were a fantastic way for us to be able to kind of like jump into those cities, particularly Playa del Carmen, Salina, really cool environment. And the beauty of it, as if you don't know Salinas yet, they are a co-living, co-working hostel hotel space. So you can go in, you can get anywhere from a $20 bed up into a $150 per night hotel room. And then you can also get co-working that goes with that. So we did that both in Cancun and in Playa del Carmen, and it was a great fit. Super affordable and really a great spot to be able to start working. The internet was fantastic there. There was only one point in Playa del Carmen where the internet wasn't fantastic, and that was when everyone was actually working out of that co-working space. And if you purchase the co-working space, what I would suggest that you do is actually continue on with it long term. So you come in for a week, you stay at Selena, you kind of set that up as your first initial base camp, and then from that point forward, get yourself a long-term rental on a monthly basis somewhere else in Playa del Carmen. But I would suggest that you keep the co-working because of the fantastic internet. So I'm going to show you Playa del Carmen because I think that that's probably the place that you should really start with. This is where the Selena is, and if you actually just zoom in here, this is what's called 5th Street. So this is kind of like the action street in Playa del Carmen. That's the place that you should really hang out. But it is also a very expensive place to be able to live. So we started in Selena, and then we ended up going probably about 10-20 blocks north of that area, at about a 20-minute walk down to 5th Street. And that was way more affordable. Like, we're talking $500 for a 2-bedroom with internet that was really good and utilities. So super affordable. And I thought that, in my opinion, what I would do is probably live more away from the action, because again, 5th Street is really loud. It's an action street, and sometimes you need to be able to get your rest, and they're going usually till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Same thing with Selena. So if you really need your rest, Selena probably slows down around 1 o'clock in the morning. So again, set that up as your base camp, and then after that, go get yourself a long-term rental. So we were about a 20-minute walk down to 5th Street, and that was perfect. And as I said before, $500 for a 2-bedroom with high-speed internet. That was actually great. I think it was like 40 to 50 up and down. They were using fiber, so it was absolutely fantastic. And this area is really the area that everyone talks about, which is Centro. We stayed in Calica, and over here is Playa Car, which is where all the resorts are located. Generally, I would stay away from that area. It's going to be a lot more expensive, and mostly just for tourists, not for people that are actually working long term. So co-working, I ended up working in the downtown Cancun Selena, the resort location in Cancun's co-working space at Selena. And then I also worked at the co-working space in Selena in Playa del Carmen. And then I also worked at Nest. So what I would suggest to you is the Selena spaces are super affordable. I personally would keep the co-working spaces long-term as you go into a long-term rental, but cost is pretty good. I believe Playa del Carmen was approximately $150 per month. If you really want to live cheaply, living in downtown Cancun, Selena, they have a co-living space, which is one of their first projects, which is really cool. I think it's like $500 for co-working and a 1-bedroom apartment with like a 50-inch screen TV, super high-speed internet. It's really a fantastic product that they're selling down there. So I'd highly suggest, if you don't really need the beach, go and hang out there. If you just want to be somewhere warm, and their co-working space is awesome. But Playa del Carmen, definitely the spot, and staying at Selena is a great option. And then secondarily, going to Nest Co-working is another great option. It's more for long-term remote workers. So you'll find people that maybe are going to work out of there for like a week or two at Selena, but at Nest, you're going to find people that are there for multiple months. So you can kind of create those relationships, hang out with those people, and it really is probably one of the most beautiful co-working spaces that I've seen in Mexico. They've got this beautiful wall of greenery, which is really quite cool. That's probably what I would do in terms of co-working. Both have fantastic internet, both are super reliable internet, and even if you have very good internet at your apartment or your Airbnb, I think it's important to be able to also have secondary internet at a co-working space, just because it's going to be super useful for you to make sure that you have that type of backup. I know for me, I do a lot of podcasts, and those backups are super important. So the food is probably one of the best places on planet Earth to be able to eat. I mean, Mexican food is known the entire world as one of the major kind of like cuisines of the world. So we had a ton of fun eating in Mexico, particularly Cancun, Tulum, and Playa del Carmen. So you can get great fish, great seafood. You can get fantastic tacos. We were paying $2 to $3 for tacos for lunch pretty much every day. And the other thing that's great about Playa del Carmen is they have a huge expat community. So you can get access to a ton of great foods. Like we had really great shawarma, really great Italian food, really great American food, Asian food. It's all there. Some honorable mentions that I'll make is Go to Romeo, Tiki Lounge, and La Familia. Those were the 3 best restaurants that we found in Playa del Carmen. And ironically, Tiki Lounge is the only one that serves Mexican food. Romeo and La Familia are both Italian restaurants that were excellent. They were as good as what I would eat in Florence or Rome, as an example. Also, to just kind of get groceries, they have a Walmart, which is pretty reasonably priced. But then there is also Mega, which is a huge kind of Walmart-esque type of store. And then Super Aquí, which is also a huge grocery store. All 3 options are really great. We found some cheaper options at just sort of like some fruit and vegetable stalls, but they weren't as reliable as those places, and for us it was a lot easier to just go into Walmart or go into Mega and get what we needed and then get out. Also, cafes. So the best cafe that we found in Playa del Carmen is Shushu Cafe, which is actually located right here, right inside of the middle of Playa del Carmen, and it was awesome. The really cool atmosphere, very almost Bali-esque, I guess you could call it, and everyone was relatively chill, and there were a lot of remote workers there. The only problem is Shushu Cafe had bad internet. Not something that we would work on from a daily basis, but something for just general kind of like checking out the internet and browsing, not a problem whatsoever. Transportation inside of Mexico is actually somewhat problematic. So they don't have Uber, and some people will tell you they have Uber, but they actually don't. I think they kind of, the taxi guys ran Uber out of town, unfortunately. So Cancun, Playa del Carmen, and Tulum do not have Uber, so you've got to actually negotiate with direct taxis. And it costs approximately $40 from Cancun to Playa del Carmen, as an example. Probably costs another $40 from Playa del Carmen to Tulum. That's relatively expensive, but you need to be able to negotiate beforehand. If you don't, it's a big issue. We had a situation where we didn't negotiate, and then the price all of a sudden went from $40 to $60, and we had to end up paying it. Also, you can have what are called colectivos, and they're super cheap. Like they're literally $3 to $4 to go from city to city, but you're packed in with a whole bunch of other people. If that isn't necessarily a big issue for you, colectivos are awesome, but they're literally point to point. So you're gonna go like central Playa del Carmen to Tulum town, or central Playa del Carmen down to the main bus station in downtown Cancun, Mexico. So keep that in mind. If you're on a budget, I would definitely go with the colectivos. We took cabs most of the time. We took a colectivo once and it was fine, but it's all locals, which is kind of cool actually if you want to interact with the locals more often. So in terms of telecommunications, my first choice is Google Fi, and if you don't know what Google Fi is, it's literally a SIM card run by Google where it's $20 for unlimited calling and $10 per gig per month, but that is located in 171 countries. So it's literally the only SIM that I really use on a month-to-month basis because I travel so often, so you don't have to flip out SIMs. However, I did see some other SIM cards down there. It's generally like $20 USD for about 4 gigs of data, and that's pretty affordable in comparison to other places that I've seen. Again, stick with Google Fi, it's way better, but if you don't have that, just get the $20 for 4 gigs plan. It should probably last you an entire month. So things to do down in Mexico is, if you're on the Riviera Maya, which is the area where all of these cities are located. I would definitely check out cenotes, which are basically underground freshwater caves. They're super cool. They were very fun for us to be able to go check out. You should also check out the ruins. So there's ruins everywhere, the Mayan ruins, which, I mean, you can just literally find dozens of them. And what I would do is probably get a tour guide or a fixer that can really take you to some cool ones that are off the beaten path that are pretty neat. And then go out and eat all the time. We started, particularly in Playa del Carmen, we were eating out almost every night just because it was so cheap and so good in comparison to other cities that we've been to. So that was big. One thing that I will mention, however, is in Playa del Carmen and Tulum, the beaches suck quite a bit, unfortunately. And this is primarily due to climate change and pollution. So there is a lot of seaweed that ends up collecting on the beach, and we're talking like feet of the stuff. And in Playa del Carmen, we actually only had maybe 1 week out of the month or two that we were there, cumulatively, that had free and open beaches without any seaweed. Same thing in Tulum, and the best beaches are actually located in Cancun. So if you really want the beach life, I would probably go down to Cancun. They've got the best beaches, but just keep that in mind if you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna hang out at the beach every day. We ran down to the beach and it stank, and it was just not a very enjoyable experience, unfortunately, for us. So keep that in mind if beach life is a central part of what you want to do. Also, down in Playa del Carmen, I would suggest you connect with two fixers, which is Rodrigo and Nat Oria. So Rodrigo runs a expat community down in Playa del Carmen, and he has a remote worker, digital nomad kind of like onboarding tour. So he shows you a couple places to eat, he tells you what the fair prices for long-term rentals are, and he will generally just kind of give you the ropes. A much longer version than this video. So I'd suggest you check him out. I'll link him down below. And then another person to talk to is Nat Oria, who is the person that runs Nest. And he's another guy that will probably be able to tell you the fair prices of things, where to go, what to eat, what not to eat. Those were two guys that helped me out a lot, and I think they'll help you out too. So generally, what I would suggest that you do is land in Cancun, drive down to Playa del Carmen, go stay at Selena for 1 week, get the co-working. After that, go find yourself a long-term rental a couple blocks up from 5th Street. Something below $1,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment is great with high-speed internet and utilities. Make sure that you're eating out on a regular basis. Go check out Nest. It's great for long-term workers. And then just have a ton of fun. That's your base of operations, where you can go up to Cancun, hang out for a couple days. You can go down to Tulum, hang out for a couple days. It's really a great place to be able to spend a couple months, particularly if you're like me and Canadian and you don't want to work in the horrible Canadian tundra. So if you liked that video, please give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. If you really like this video, why don't you actually subscribe to this YouTube channel? We talk about these types of things all the time. For remote workers, how to actually build teams, number one, and then number two, how to actually basically work remotely, like I do on a regular basis. Also, since you watched to the very end of this video, we're also giving away a free ticket to our conference, Running Remote, which we hold every single year down in Bali, Indonesia. And the way that you can get in the running for your free ticket is literally just like this video, write a comment down below, also subscribe to this YouTube channel. So if you do all those three things, you'll be in for the running, and we're gonna choose someone randomly from that group to be able to get a free ticket and join us in Bali. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.